Okay, so I've gotten this node to work. Not by itself. I ran into a little trouble with that when I was just trying to use a node server straight. I mean, to connect to the database. And but I didn't give it enough time to really figure out what I was doing wrong. Instead, I jumped into using the Express.js framework or library for Node. And then in that case, I didn't really have any problem. At least no problem that was not my own fault from being sloppy with my code. So let me just show you. This is the option that I think will work. I know that it's kind of late date for us to be learning a whole new thing right now, but I think it's not too difficult. It winds up being more code than it would be in PHP just to like retrieve some rows and display them on a page or do a simple login script. It would be simpler to do with PHP. That is, if PHP was working. Like if we were just doing this in PHP My Admin or something like that, that'd be simpler. But in Express's defense, it's not only being served and grabbing data from the database, but it's also setting up a routing system and doing all that. So it's not too bad, I think. So let me just show you in case we want to go this route. And if we do, I think we can get together sometime this weekend, or I can do another recording this weekend and show how to do the login script. And from that, I think you could probably build some of the other stuff on your own. But let me point you to some documentation here. Because to get Node installed on Windows, it helps to install something else first, which is just a Node installer kind of thing. And that just makes it super easy to install Node and NPM, which is Node Package Manager. From the command line. By the way, NPM is something that's it's very useful just to load modules in JavaScript for projects, all kinds of things. Even if you're not using Node as a server, which is what it was built for and is mostly used for, NPM is just very useful. I use it all the time on Mac. So anyway, let me take a look here. I've got, so this is the page, and I'll put a link to this. I guess I'll put it in the classroom stream for right now, but then I'll also put it in a page. I don't have much time this morning. I have to run off to my other work, but I'll put the stuff up this evening or tomorrow morning sometime soon. But this is the page, Node.js on Windows. This is a publication for Microsoft, and this will take you through the process that I went through that was fairly painless. And this is the thing to install NVM, which is like Node Version Manager, I believe. And this is where you will be able to see the different versions of Node and install one. And when you install Node, NPM gets installed automatically with it. And this is the link. And Windows NVM repository takes you to this GitHub page here, which tells you what this is all about. But really, you can kind of ignore this whole thing and just go for the download now. There's a bunch of these. There's a download now, and then if you scroll a little bit further down, there's other places. Hey, there's the latest installer. And so yeah, there's a bunch of ways to get to it. But just go to download now, and it'll take you to another GitHub page of the releases of this project. And then you go down here, and it gives you different ways of downloading these things. And the Windows tutorial here, just set up Node, says, yeah, download the zip and then open it up. I didn't bother with that. I just downloaded the exe file directly and then ran it. And it was fine. So I think either way is fine. So once you get that, you take you through the wizard and get it installed. And you can go to the PowerShell or just the DOS prompt, whatever. And then you do the NVM list available. So this is kind of important. Skip this step number 6. What this does, I don't know, these are really supposed to be in alternatives. This is a poorly built tutorial in this way because it looks like, do 6 and then do 7. Don't. These are alternatives to each other. NVM install latest will install the latest unstable build of Node, and I don't think that's what you want. I think if you're going to go into a production environment at some point, you really want a stable, the LTS, I think it's called, long-term support version. And for that, you do NVM list available, and it'll show you what the LTS is. This is a little bit old, 10.16. I think I did 16.15.0 once I did NVM list available. And that I can actually, let me show, if you do NVM list available, because I've already got this installed. And oh no, I'm in the MySQL command prompt. Sorry about that. But anyway, I won't bother with it. When I open up the prompt, I'll show you. But NVM list available will show you these. Then you just do NVM install and then whatever version you want. So this is a good example here, except just I think you'll wind up with a 16.15.0. And then you can test it. Well, actually, no, you do NVM use and then version, and then use the same version like 16.15. And then you can run and test and see that you've got Node installed. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to pop over to file browser here, and I've made a little Node testing environment inside my workspace. You can put these anywhere. This is the test app that I was working on last night. And I'm just going to open up a terminal here with a right click. And then now I can do like NVM, what was it, list all or list available. And it'll give me this list. And so, yeah, there it is, 16.15.0. I'm not going to do it because I've already installed these, or that one. I did the install latest. If you do the install latest, and then you can install multiple versions and then use that use command to say which one you're going to be using. So if you do happen to do step number 6, don't worry, you haven't broken anything. Okay, and then, so I've already done it, so I'm just going to do node -- version, just like PHP, and there's my 16.15.0. You can also do the shortcut on this one, I think, node -v, yeah, that works, and then npm -v or -- version. It'll take a second longer, but there's the npm node package manager version. Okay, so cool. So now that I've got Node installed on this Windows machine, and by the way, I mean, if you ever get a Mac, you don't have to worry with the NVM business. That's just for Windows. It's like a replacement for sudo command or running as an administrator or something like that. On Mac, you can just set up Node immediately using like brew or something like that. It's really easy. So anyway, let's go ahead and set up a project. So I'm going to do, well, let's see, I'll make a new directory here. So mkdir, and let's call this test app, and cd change directory and get us into test app here. And now I'm inside the test app directory. I'll check it. There it is. Nothing inside there yet. And I'll do the npm init, which is how you initialize, and it creates a package.json file, which is what enables Node to work. So npm init, and there we go. And but it gives me other options. So this is where you have to kind of hit enter all the way through, and it gives you various options. You can set up like a different package name here, version, whatever. You can type in a description for your app, that sort of thing. Entry points, a lot of tutorials I see use app.js instead of index.js. I don't think it matters a whole lot. I'll just use the default index.js. If that's fine, then you can just go ahead and just hit enter all the way through. Just OK, and enter, and then we've got that. If I look over here, there's the package.json file that it created for me. And then I can use npm to install certain things that have been put into like an extension library or plugin library. Basically, npm knows where everything is as long as it's been published to a certain place. So if I do npm install express, which is that library or framework for Node, and it'll go through, slap that stuff in there, and it puts some other stuff in there for me, Node modules, the package log, JSON, and so on. And now I can go into code editor and we can create something here. So let me go into code, and I'm going to open a folder and go into test app. And instead of starting with like an HTML or PHP or some other markup, we'll just create a JavaScript file. That'll be the index.js, which will be the landing page. It's kind of like the what we used like for the app.php inside the app folder. I think that was the name of it when we did the MVC last fall. But anyway, let me just go ahead and JavaScript. There we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. I think so. And let's go ahead and do, now that we've got Express installed, we have to tell the app that we're going to be using it. So we'll set these as a series of constants here. We'll do const express equals, and then require, which is a node thing. I'm not going to bother with the semicolons for right now. And we'll do const app equals express, which is a function. And then just tell it what port we're going to be listening to, 3000. Now, one of the weird things that I hit right away, and I think this mostly happened on the Mac, was the port that I chose for the server would do weird things depending on what browser I was using. So like port 3000 worked in Firefox, but it didn't work in Chrome. But then when I switched to 8000, it worked in Chrome, but not in Firefox. It was kind of weird. But I don't think I ran into that problem on Windows. But if you do, just like try a different port number, try 8000 or just 80 or something like that, and then it should like fix any problems. At least it did for me. Okay, so what we're going to do is set up the super simple routing system that it's got here, actually. I mean, it gets more complicated, obviously, especially if you have a page that's referring to itself. But overall, I'm impressed with how simple the routing system is in Express. We're going to do app.get, which is their method. And remember, you probably remember this from the MVC that we created, the routing system we created for the MVC, rather, in PHP, where the root was just a slash. And we'll do the same thing here. And then pass it a function. And these are just variable names, of course, so you can name them anything. I'm using an arrow function, which we learned in front-end web development. I think you can also just use the function keyword. Either one will work fine. And as always, when you're just starting with something with the first time, do a hello world. So I'll do response.send, and then our hello world, like so. And then we have to tell, so we specified a number here, but we have to tell it to actually listen on that port. And that's another method that's attached to our app here, app.listen. And this variable, of course, is referencing this 3000 up here. You could just type in 3000 here if you wanted to. Let's see. And I'm going to do you could stop here, but I'm going to do a console.log to show you how Node is a little bit different from just working with front-end JS. Remember, Node is running on the back end. And if we're doing regular JavaScript on the front end, client side, then we do a console.log, and it's going to show up in the console of the browser, right? But in Node, it doesn't do that. Let's see, we're doing a test app, right? Test app listening on port. And actually, I'm going to use backticks, so I don't have to concatenate here. And this is referencing that same variable here that's being passed in. Okay, let's see. I think this is it. This is probably all we need to do here. So I'm going to save this. And I probably should have saved before now, actually. But let's go ahead and remember the landing document. I hesitate to call landing page, but yeah, it's a landing page. Index.js inside test app. Save it. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to run the Node server. So I'm going to go back to the PowerShell here and make sure I'm still in test app. I am. And we're just going to do node index.js. And hit enter. And first of all, this looks like a generic bash or shell message. This is the kind of thing that shows up as logs when you're running a PHP server through the command line. But this is actually something, this is what we wrote in the code here. Console.log test app listening on port 3000. That's what this guy is right here. So when you do a console.log, it doesn't show up in the console of the browser. It shows up actually in the command prompt here. so that you can see if things are working. You could spit out variables here to see if they give you the expected value. Everything that you use the console for in the browser, you can do here and just see it in the shell instead. So anyway, hopping back over to the browser here, and let me go ahead and do localhost 3000, and there is our hello world. So we've done one thing with it. You can also use, let's see, where am I? There we go. So instead of doing a response.send and just spit out like a string here, you can also do a response.sendFile and do a static file. I'm not going to do that right now. I have to run off to my other work, but this is enough to get you started. And if you just go to express.js, this is pretty close to what their startup tutorial is, doing the hello world thing. So anyway, on hopefully Saturday morning or something like that, let's stay in touch, and we can set up something this weekend, or I'll do like another recording, hopefully Saturday morning, about actually connecting to the database and doing that stuff. Okay, but in the meantime, consider whether you'd like to do this. I think that if we don't do Node for this, that we should probably just stay in the MySQL workbench, unfortunately. But this is working, so let's go ahead and try it maybe. Okay.